Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started, but thank you for being with us here this evening. My name is Jeff Polari. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director up at MCLA in North Adams. I'll be the one moderating the discussion tonight for tonight's How to Market and Promote Yourself as a Student Athlete During the Pandemic. I'm just going to start off with a couple of FAQs for those that may not be familiar with Zoom. Most of you have your video off. That's just fine with us. I would ask that you please keep yourself muted in the background, just so we don't get any kickbacks on the audio. And then there's a chat feature on the bottom dashboard where I would ask that if you have questions, you can dump a question into the chat, and I will disperse that to the appropriate people at the proper time. We'll also have a Q&A at the end, and we'll kind of go from there. I would expect the call to be somewhere in the 45-minute to an hour range at most, depending on how many questions. And we are, really, really fortunate to be joined by a lot of folks that have a lot of Berkshire County ties. We have with us from MCLA, Adam Hildebrand, our men's soccer coach. We have Sean Flynn, a guidance counselor from Monument Mountain High School with some coaching background as well. We got two coaches from Wacona Regional High School, Liz Kay from women's basketball and Gary Campbell from football. And we also have Carrie Alabozic, our Assistant Director of Financial Aid from MCLA, with us as well to chat about some financial aid and the recruiting process. So I'm going to start and kind of kick things off. For those that do not know me, I was born and raised in Lee, Massachusetts, went through the Lee public school systems, was a three-sport athlete back in the mid-90s, and I was fortunate enough to get recruited and go on to play college baseball at the University of Massachusetts. It was something that I can recall being in high school and having some different options, whether it was football, basketball, or baseball, as to which I wanted to play. And once I got through college, I got into coaching immediately. I became the baseball coach up at MCLA. I was there for 15 years as the head coach there, and really got into recruiting. I've always had a knack for following Berkshire County athletics and the high school specifically. So it's got a place in my heart that I always want to try to help out some of the local high school athletes. And we thought this was a great time. The pandemic has really crippled not only high school athletics, as nobody's really participated this fall, a little bit of golf and cross country, maybe some practices. And the same's been said at the college level. The pandemic's really crippled most of what you see, with the exception of some Division I athletic programs. At this point, everything has been canceled or postponed. We're just starting to get to some winter stuff on the books. I know the MIA came out with some interesting feedback on winter sports just a couple of days ago, and people are hopeful that that may start in sometime in December. And most of the colleges, at least locally, most of the colleges are on pause at this point or have canceled their winter sport programming. So really a lot has been up in the air in regards to the pandemic and what student athletes can do. Obviously, senior student athletes who have lost the opportunity to compete, really feel bad for those folks, as the senior year in the fall is typically when most of your college coaches will start the recruiting process. In some cases, it can start as early as your sophomore and junior year, but predominantly it's going to be as your senior season. I'm just going to go through just a couple of quick factors of choosing the right college. I want to make something fairly clear on the call too. This is not an MCLA recruiting call. This is to help folks choose the right institution. That's why we got a broad base of individuals here with us tonight. Choosing the right institution for you, which there's a lot of different factors in that. I have a quick checklist, but number one should be the case with all of us is the academic programming that you're interested in. That's the number one match that we got to find that's out there. We got to find an institution that matches our financial needs, which is a reason why I thought it was really important to have Carrie with us on the call. One of the comments I used to use with recruits when I was coaching was, are you interested with cost or are you interested with payback? Because there's a difference between the two of what you may pay up front to what you may be paying back in loans, and Carrie can go through some of that information. Then, of course, there's the athletic program fit. I think every athlete that's out there, has grand visions of where they really want to be. And in most cases, the reality is that's a little bit higher than where they really should be projecting themselves. So finding the right program that's for you, that can be at the Division I, the Division II, the Division III level, that can be junior college for some folks as well. That plays a role in choosing a school. And last is probably the location. Where's that school? There's plenty of studies that are out there, and those of you that have done some research, I'm sure know that the majority of students stay within about a 2-hour radius of their home in choosing the proper school for them. So those are kind of the key factors. Again, academic programming, financial concerns, athletic program fit, and then location. And I'm sure each of our panel here tonight will go through some of those areas as well. So as I've already mentioned too, the coronavirus has really impacted the recruiting, not just because of the cancellation of games, but in a lot of cases, most campuses are visitor free, meaning that nobody can go outside of the immediate student body to visit a college, to visit a campus, to meet with a coach. And Zoom has kind of taken over the world of recruiting. Marketing on social media, Zoom calls have become the norm with college coaches as we're kind of moving through. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve, and we wanted to have an opportunity to give back to the Berkshire County athletes. And with that said, I'm going to start by kind of turning it over to Carrie. She's going to talk about the impact that the pandemic has had on student financial need, and I will stop talking and let Carrie take over from there.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Carrie Alabosic. I've been in the financial aid office at MCLA for 33 years. And so I've got a lot of knowledge behind me and a lot of people that work with me that are here to help you with this process if you should need help. I just want to kind of go over the process of applying for financial aid a little bit and things to keep in mind. Any seniors in high school should be completing the FAFSA form, which is the pre-application for federal student aid. It's an online process, and they should be completing that now. It does open in October every year, October 1st, and it does have to be completed every year. So each October, we have to start the process over again. If you haven't done the FAFSA already and you're looking to go to college next fall, I do recommend you get on and get that done right away. You can choose up to 10 schools to list on the form that will receive it electronically. We do recommend that, you put your top choice schools, where your dream college, where you want to go, but also list some fallback schools, maybe the local schools, or some kind of lower range in the price of schools. You may be thinking D1, but it's going to be really expensive. And once the financial aid offers start coming in, that's when you can kind of compare what the costs are. And like Jeff said, the payback and the payout kind of thing. You might apply to an expensive school. You might get enough financial aid that you won't have to pay out that much while you're in school. You may not get that much, where you're going to have to take a lot of student loans, where you're going to be paying a lot back after you get out. So all of that you have to really take into consideration when you're listing those schools, kind of go from the expensive to the cheaper schools, because you can list up to 10. So I do recommend you think about that. Once you decide what schools you want to list on the FAFSA, then you really need to do a little research and either call their financial aid offices at those schools or check their websites. They have to have it on their website as to what their priority date is for financial aid. Especially with the pandemic, a lot of people are having a lot of income issues, losing jobs or losing pay in the last year, and who knows going forward. So it's really important to make any priority date that the financial aid offices set, and that gives the student priority for the funds that they have available. So the later you apply for financial aid, you run the risk of maybe losing out on some money that they may have. So definitely reach out to the financial aid offices. Like I said, either online or give them a call. See if they have any other application materials that you have to complete besides the FAFSA form. Some private schools also require the CSS profile, which is a more lengthy application for financial aid that's online along with the FAFSA. So they may have their own institutional application. Um, Also check with the admissions office if you're getting any merit scholarship once those awards start coming in, to make sure they're renewable and what the criteria is to renew it. So the schools may give a student, $10,000 a year, but there's something that they have to maintain, whether it's a grade point average or credit, earn credits each year, in order to renew that every year. So you don't want to kind of get stuck after the first year and realize you don't have all that money coming in that they originally offered you the first year. Now is also the time to apply for scholarships. So there's a lot of scholarship free resources out on the web. Fastweb.com is one, and scholarship.com. Those are two. There's so many that you can Google. Don't pay for a scholarship search. It's a ripoff. You can get all that information for free. But now's the time to do it because a lot of the deadlines for next fall are going to be coming up in like January, February, and March. It's a little time consuming, but if you take a little bit of time each day, do a scholarship search, apply for some outside scholarships, because any money that you can receive from other sources besides either your high school or the colleges that you're applying to, any little bit will help. Even if it's a $500 scholarship, that's $500 less coming out of your pocket. As far as the pandemic affecting, I know at MCLA we did lose a little bit of money for next year. It didn't impact us too much as far as that, but it's impacting the students and the parents because they're having issues with their income. So they're looking for additional help from the college. The FAFSA is for next year is based on the 2019 income, so last year's income. So of course this past year and the year coming up is going to be a lot different picture for a lot of people. So definitely check with the financial aid offices at any school that you apply to and ask them about special circumstances, changes in income, unemployment, anything like that. Most schools have a process that they go through. We have a form that's online that students and parents can complete and submit it electronically to us, and then any documentation. So we can then use our professional judgment to then maybe give some more money, hopefully in grant assistance, which is money you don't have to pay back. But I would check with the colleges and see how they handle those special circumstances with the change in income for 2020 or for 2021 income. And one of the other things is, like I said, I have a great staff that is there to help. You don't have to be applying to MCLA or even thinking about us at all. We're here to help. We're part of the community. So if you needed to email us or call us with questions, general financial aid questions, we can help you with that. And I believe Jeff has our contact info available for you. So I'll be here, and if you have questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer those for you.
Carrie, maybe one quick thing too. Can you just talk about when the financial aid deadlines typically are in terms of awarding packages and accepting them?
Yeah, every school has their own deadline. Like we have a January 1st priority deadline for schools to complete their financial aid application with us and have been accepted. And then it's a rolling from there. So as we go on, as money starts to run out, of course, the students that apply for their financial aid later or don't get all their information into the admissions office to get accepted, it could be March or April, they're going to miss out on some money that they could have gotten. Every school, some are March 1st, some are February 1st. It really depends on the school. That's why they do have it posted on their website.
And then typically around May 1st, that money would get turned back in, correct, if it's not accepted?
Usually, yeah, it's usually the May 1st is the kind of the deposit deadline. So they have to kind of decide what they're going to do. And then if they decide to come, great, the financial aid, they then need to just make sure they accept it with us to keep that in place for them.
Got it. Thank you, Carrie.
Welcome.
Next, we'll go to Liz and Gary, and maybe we'll start with Liz and talk about, without some of the games, how some of the coaches, especially at the high school level, can assist their student athletes those that have missed contests, those that have missed seasons, and I'll let Liz kind of take over from there with your background.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Jeff, thanks for putting this together. Obviously, many of you are local, but if you don't know me, my name is Liz Kay, and I'm the girls basketball coach at Wacona. This will be my 7th year there, I believe. I'm actually originally from North Carolina. Went to college at Bates up in Maine, and I've been in the Northeast since college. But I also, sort of a side note, I've actually taught in the prep school world for the last 20 years. So I teach at the Williston Northampton School in East Hampton, Massachusetts. And if anybody has any questions regarding prep school, I think that's something that's come up quite a bit with a lot of athletes. I've coached at the varsity level there, but not in basketball. I've sort of stuck in the public school realm for that. But I have taught there for a number of years. And if anybody's interested in talking about the process with that, it actually is a very similar process as the college applications as well, whether kids are looking to do a post-grad year, whether they're looking to reclassify, or whether they're just looking for another opportunity. I would say, though, that generally speaking with prep school, that for the most part, a lot of the decisions are made. It sort of goes back to what Jeff and Carrie are saying, is that you really want to make sure that the school is a good fit for what you're looking for. Some athletics are really good, some are not so good. Some schools are big, some schools are small, some schools are urban, some are more rural. It's a lot of the same application process as well. But coming from that realm, I would also say that one thing I've found coaching public school basketball is that, the kids really need the help of the coaching staff and the advocates in their community as well to help them navigate through this process. I can't say enough about Gary, what he's done, certainly with the football program, and just sort of helping kids navigate through this as we've done it many, many times before. And that includes asking coaches for recommendations. That includes having coaches help reach out to coaches that they know. I think that one thing that we have in common certainly is that, our net is very wide. Division I, Division II, Division III. Really don't be afraid to ask coaches to advocate for you, whether that be even sending game film, whether it be in this situation, sending workout film or highlights. Different coaches want different things, certainly from the conversations that I've had a lot of this summer. And certain areas of the country are playing this winter and some are not. And so that's going to vary from place to place as well. So, if anybody has any questions about any of those things, or, sort of the things that I would love to touch upon, if anybody has questions, would be sort of the prep school piece, or coaches advocating for their student athletes.
Thank you, Liz. Gary, from your angle, you've obviously been involved in the Berkshire County football world for quite a bit, but have some high-level experience as well. Feel free to expand upon anything that Liz said, and certainly some of the things that you like to do as well.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. And I echo what Liz said, and that is simply thank you for putting this together. And for anybody out there, just as a quick background myself, I'm entering my 26th year as a head football coach, which is scary, but not only here in Berkshire County, but also in Pennsylvania. I've been lucky enough to place kids at anywhere from the Naval Academy, the University of Pittsburgh, Colgate, the Gamut, Williams College, Westfield State. My own son plays at Mass Maritime Academy. So I've got a lot of experience and, like Liz, a lot of contacts. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important that the kids know and your parents know that the coaches aren't the ones that are going to get your kid into college. Your kid and what they do and how they do it is what's going to be the tell-all. Every coach around tells every college coach how much great their kid is. My kid's phenomenal. My kid's great. So they hear that all the time. So the proof becomes in the pudding of their actions and what they're doing in school and on the fields. Jeff, if you don't mind sharing one tool that I use, and I sit down, I meet with our kids, is you have to get specific on where they're going. So as Jeff alluded to earlier, the process with some pretty special kids may start a lot earlier. Special kids will get noticed right away. I mean, you don't have to advocate for them. For me in football, when the kid's 6'4" and he's 230 pounds and he runs like a deer, that's okay. We got something special. So things kind of happen. But I think this is a nice checklist I'd like to share with you, and you can steal it. Anybody can use it. Again, we're here for kids, and we want people in the right spots. I think the kid at number one has to be self-aware. I'm not going to read this verbatim. But you got to know where you are now. What level are you at? Where are my grades? Be real with yourself. Am I a varsity starter? Am I not? Am I an all-league, all-state kid? What's my potential? In football anyways, it does matter. Very few, the small guys make it to a big level. Do I want to trade football? If we're talking scholarship kids, do I want to trade football for an education? Because that's what a scholarship is. A scholarship is a trade. It is a mutual agreement that this is what you're expected to do. So if you're a scholarship kid and that coach says you're at the weight room at 6 a.m., guess what? You're at the weight room at 6 a.m. and you're at study halls at a certain time and doing certain things. Division III also has pretty good requirements with that too. So let's face it, you are trading an education for your abilities. That may be why you're getting into that school. Again, before playing football, what do you want to do the rest of your life? What am I major? What do I want to major in? Within the college, I think it's really important for the kids to know, like my oldest son goes to Wentworth College. If you're not there to be an engineer, I'm not sure what you're there, or an architect. I'm not sure what you're there for. Some schools are very specific. Some schools have a lot of other fallback majors that you may be interested in, because sometimes a 18, 19-year-old kid has an idea where he or she wants to do. That kind of changes as you go. Does that school have that flexibility for your kid to be able to be there? Location is huge. Jeff alluded earlier, 2 hours. I call it a lunchtime thing. Can you get home to see mom and dad for lunch? And can you get home for a good meal? And I also think being a city cat or a country cat, you got to really commit. If you're going to UMass Boston, or if you're going to BU, or if you're going to that type of school, you better commit to that, that city lifestyle, that Northeastern stuff like that. But if you're thinking, out in the Berkshires here or somewhere else, up in the Vermont and the Middlebury and some other places, well, you better understand where you're going to be at. So location's a big deal. What level do you want to play? What's the difference? There are levels within levels. There are levels within Division I. There are levels within Division II. There are levels within Division III. Competitive, academically, there are a lot of differences within those colleges that the kids have to know, and you have to know what you're getting into. And then finally, I really get with the kids, and I sit down. If the kid says, Coach, I want to go play college football. Great. Let's create that profile, academic, football ability, extras, NCAA clearinghouse. Make sure if the kid, go down and do it, even if it's a Division III kid, but you still have to file through those things and go through that through your guidance office. If you haven't done that yet, some visits and some other things may not happen, especially for the upper schools. Social media, huge. You are what you put out there. So tell your kids, they're going to check on it. It's easy to check on it. And even stuff that you don't put out personally, what you retweet and what you do with some things, it says a lot about you. I say go fishing. The colleges are fishing. They're throwing out big nets. They're throwing out form letters. And by the way, if you get a form letter, that's awesome. That's great. They know you're there. However, it's a form letter. They've sent out 5,000 of those. And it's just one of those things. So it is up to you to go and make contact. I can't emphasize that enough. The head coach of whatever school is not going to knock on your door. It does not happen. So you must be your best advocate, okay? You got to create a list. I think Carrie mentioned it already. The top of your ability, academic football, the big stretch, put a list of schools out there. More attainable schools, And then what do you call it? Division III schools that might be some fallback as far as athletically or academically. But some of those, again, Division III schools are pretty darn good athletically and academically. Go to college websites, fill out questionnaires. I think almost every college now has a recruit questionnaire that's out there. Make them know that you're there. Send your profile. Jeff, I don't know if you could share that, but I send out things, and the kids can send out things. I send out emails to specific ones. We have a NESCAC kid, type kid, Zach Archibald. You'll see him right there. You don't have to scroll down, but he's a kid that, I may send out to certain schools, but other schools I may not send out. Why? He's a 4.0 GPA. He's a high academic kid. His brother's at the U.S. Naval Academy right now. He comes from a high academic family. He's a very good football player. So there's a lot of things there that a lot of schools may like for him, and he may get a different look than somebody else. So those are some things, but these are easy things I have attached there that are very important. A cell phone number, an email, and then huddle film. These are all things in which are easy for them to get started with. Now, this is something that your coach, like myself, would do for my kids here at our school. But after that, kids follow up. I have a meeting with my kids and say, hey, follow up with this coach. Go follow up with these. Go make sure that you create that relationship. This is important. And if they're interested in you, they will come back. If they're not, that's life. And that's another hard lesson to learn is maybe that school isn't interested in you. Maybe that school has 8,000 running backs and they're not looking for a running back, and that's life. There might not be a situation. That's why I say, again, the academic match and the match of where you want to be for the next 4 years might be even more important than the athletic match. And so you got to enjoy where you want to be because maybe injury occurs. Unfortunately, football is a high injury sport. Maybe that happens. You better love where you're at to finish your schooling. So these are all big things that we talk about. And then finally, you have to continue to produce. You got to continue to produce in the classroom and on the fields, on the courts, in the pools, whatever it may be. You got to continue to do these things. So these are the things I sit down with my kids. Some kids, they love the high school sport experience, and they're like, Coach, I'm done. I'm done with sports. Great. That's awesome. I'd advocate for them for any school without athletics. But some, they want athletics. And at the high school level, some of our kids ask, Coach, how can I get and play baseball here or play basketball here? Or do you know this coach or know this? Absolutely. If we can open up doors, we will do it in any way possible. So that's a checklist of things. You can steal it. Anybody can take it, use it. But get to your coach. Your coach is your best advocate. And if your coach isn't advocating for your kid, then you're going to have to go through guidance or find somebody else and you may be able to do it yourself. Go on the websites and you may have to search yourself and go create that contact. Again, coaches will not be knocking on your doors and calling your phones to get your kid there. They got a lot to do, and you have to be the advocate and you have to be the aggressor going after it. That's my advice.
Thank you, Coach. And just an FYI to all those, the 2 documents that we just shared, they should be available for download in the chat box. I posted them in there. So if you want to grab those and pull them off, you certainly can do so. Next up, let's go to the other side of recruiting, right? We just heard from Gary and Liz on the high school side, but let's talk about the collegiate side. We have Adam Hildebrand, who's our men's soccer coach. He also doubles as our recruiting coordinator up at MCLA, so I'll let him introduce himself and over a few things.
Hey everyone, Adam Hildebrand here. It's actually my 13th year as the head coach of men's soccer here. New the last couple of years is this recruiting coordinator position I've taken up. And, a big piece of what I do with that is working with coaches, and I see Coach Gladue on the call here, is working with coaches and how to contact recruits, how they contact you. And I kind of want to reverse engineer that communication so you know how to contact us. But before I even get to that, to emphasize what Coach Campbell said, Here's a little story. If you're rafting, whitewater rafting out in the Colorado Rockies, you fall out of the raft, the guide will throw you the line, but he'll ask you to swim towards it. And recruiting is the same thing. You got to be an active participant in the recruiting process. You got to be an active participant to swim to get back on that boat. And you got to meet that coach halfway. And so the first step, and Coach Campbell and Coach Cave alluded to it, it's breaking the ice. As Sean Flynn would say, it's that initial contact. It's that initial email. What Coach Campbell just showed you is gold right there. It's an email with a link of game film. It's contact information. You could even add coaches, if you have a club coach and his contact information, put that on there. If you have, majors you're interested in, GPA, those are all essential pieces. If we can't see you play right now during the pandemic, we have to connect the dots. And coaches, Coach K and Coach Campbell, Sean Flynn, that's how we're going to connect the dots, using our resources to figure out if you're on the level and see if you're the right fit. If you get that initial contact, the two things will happen. You'll go, there'll be follow-up. And from there, but coaches, there's also initial contact from college coaches. We'll reach out to you. And Coach Campbell has mentioned the form letter. And football, yeah, definitely 5,000. Soccer, we're not sending 5,000 emails. No way. Each sport is very different. So if I reach out to you or another coach reach out to you, you have three things you're probably thinking: yes, no, maybe. And I would respond to that coach likewise, like, y'all, totally interested. Thanks for reaching out to me, coach. Sorry, coach, it's not the good fit for me. That's completely fine. Coaches need to hear that. And, I don't know much about you, but I'm interested. That's the maybe. Can you send me more information? That's okay too. So that's initial contact. The step two is follow-up, and follow-up is huge. And what my favorite follow-up is this: I contact you or you contact me, and now you have the coach contact me, have him email me. And then maybe we chat on the phone and talk about you, and we could connect the dots again. Like Coach Campbell might say, well, this guy played here and this guy I'm sending you here, they're on the same level. And I can be like, oh, wow, I need this guy. Or I don't need this guy. I don't know. So use your coach to connect that dots and the follow-up. If you don't have an advocate, you could call me up. You could send me a text message. You could email me and follow up again. There's always ways to advocate for yourself. But, once again, don't be afraid to use the resources around you. And I say step three is this. It's the check-in. Coach, I just got All-State. Awesome. Thank you. I need to know that. Coach, here's some updated game film. Coach, this is me working out with the guys. Check this out. Coach, I'm playing this weekend at a showcase. Come see me play, or here's the link so you can watch me play online. I love that stuff, and I'm looking to follow up with you constantly. If there's a back and forth, now we've got a relationship going, and I think that's huge. I'm trying to get a lot in 5 minutes right here. So definitely do these things. Definitely ask coaches right now how many seniors are coming back, because nobody's using eligibility right now. Look at the junior class and the senior class, because the juniors might stay an extra year too. If they're junior strong and they're all staying for a 5th year to finish up, that might affect playing time. That might affect how many roster spots they're giving out. Ask coaches how many recruits you're looking to bring in. Definitely ask coaches how they prefer to communicate. If they prefer text them. If they prefer, some coaches are old school. They're only going to do phone calls. Some coaches are millennials. They're going to do direct messages. Each coach is different. In our staff, we have millennials, and we got some old school guys like Coach Gladu here. He's going to call you on the phone and talk to you, but we got some millennials too, and they'll use social media to contact you. Definitely discuss timelines with coaches. Ask them what their timeline is. Tell them what your timeline is, and try to find a happy medium. Don't do these things. Don't email coaches all at the same time. You got 10 coaches you want to contact. Don't put us all in the same email. Don't cut and paste emails. I've gotten emails before from athletes where they put the wrong college in. Coach Hildebrand, I really want to go to Endicott. And I'm like, oh man, cut and paste. How do you do that to me? You know, and I got to emphasize again, if you're not interested, don't wait to tell the coach. It's part of the dance. Rejection is not a bad thing. It just lets us know we got to find the next person to fill that roster spot. And then when you reach out to coaches, know something about the school, know something about the program. Obviously, you want to cast out a big net, but you got to know who you're talking to. And where you're at in the process is different for everybody. If you're a senior, let me say this, it's not too late. You could start this tomorrow. It's definitely not too late. If you're a junior or sophomore, it's definitely not too early. You know, get moving on the process. So I'm looking forward to the questions at the end. My email will probably be at the end too. I, like Kerry, you know, I'm here to help you. I don't care if you're coming to MCLA or if you're looking to go somewhere else, or if you don't even play soccer. You know, I'll help you out with the process. Just reach out to me. Thanks, Jeff.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. We'll go to Sean here with kind of the last piece that we haven't really talked about. And I assume one of the significant challenges, I'll let you, Sean, talk to it, is the guidance counselors not having face-to-face interaction with the students on a daily basis that you typically would. Sean Flynn, guidance counselor, go for it.
Hi, I actually thank you, Jeff, for putting this on, and I think I definitely should be called the ancient one because I'm pretty confident that I have to believe I'm the oldest one here, and because I'm pretty sure Jeff was at Lee when I was coaching at Lennox, and Coach Adam was definitely in high school. So I'm grateful to be part of this. I've been a guidance counselor for close to 25 years now, worked in a prep school prior to that, and I've been coaching soccer in and around our area at the high school and club level for many years. So one of the things that before I get started, I think you should all know is that coming, if you know how to use it properly, and a lot of that is built around the fact that we are so well connected and relationships can matter. So even if you don't necessarily have a coach that you feel like is going to be able to strongly advocate for you, or doesn't have the time or doesn't really have an understanding of it, I'm sure that if you have represented yourself well in competition, both in our area and in your school, as well as whether it's at the club level, there's probably people around who would be willing to support you, similar to what Coach Adam had said. I'm sure, for example, a quality basketball player in Berkshire County that Liz is aware of, she would be certainly willing to put in a good word for. Same thing with Coach Campbell as it relates to football. We all know who are the quality kids and quality athletes that are coming out of our area, and the ones we'd be willing to fight for. So just to be aware of that. I think probably the first things that I would just point out is that really a lot of what the coaches have already said is right on the money. I think when you're thinking about building your college list, it should be based on your goals. So a lot of these things have already been touched on, but first and foremost, you want to be thinking about the location, the setting, and the size of where you think you'd like to be. You know, you're going to be in class for 15 hours a week, and then after that, your life is going to be whatever life you'd like to choose for yourself. So be tuned in to what really matters to you, right? So that in and of itself, there should be a part of that, regardless of what program you want to look at. Athletically, you want to make sure you're going to be comfortable in the environment that you're in. Number two is going to be based around your selectivity. Have a feel for, number one, what's the acceptance rate? They're based around the GPA, class rank, and have a sense of where you're going to fall in their category from an admissions perspective, right? Every college will have data that you can look up. It's readily available on Naviance. So if you have access to that program in your school, the College Board is also an excellent resource, as well as a number of others as well. I think to Heidi's point, in terms of cost and financial aid, if that's going to be a concern, it's critical that you find at least one in-state public college or university to pursue, if not more. The cost of many of the public in-state universities are dramatically less than a private. That doesn't mean the privates won't be able to come with a really good financial aid package, but you just want to play it smart and ensure yourself that you always have one affordable option just in case the financial aid doesn't work out at other places. And many of the public options are excellent options, and that is really, I think it's really critical that you pursue those aggressively. And in terms of possible major, again, this isn't a huge deal. I'll just touch on really quickly. If you have an idea, to Coach Campbell's point relative to if you're going to go to Wentworth, you should be going for engineering or construction management or architecture, that's probably not the place you're going to go if you're thinking about majoring necessarily a liberal arts, for example, right? So you want to know that. If you're undecided, that's okay. You could be looking around a lot of different options. If that's not going to play a major factor, then you want to make sure you have a good a range of majors available to you, right? But if you think you want to be an engineering major, you want to make sure the schools you're looking at offer engineering, for example. And then finally, building that list is really driven by, if you're thinking about playing athletically, you got to know your levels. Again, to Coach Campbell's point, there are levels within levels. I think it's important to know that. A lot of kids go in with this idea that, I want to get a scholarship somewhere. I want to play a D2 or D1. Well, in many cases, the quality of play at some Division III schools could be just as strong. The quality of life, the quality of the experience within that athletic program could be just as good at the Division III level as it is at the Division II or Division I. You want to know that ahead of time and open yourself up to those possibilities, right? And you also want to be realistic and have a sense of, make sure you're tapping into the people who know, who really know what the quality of a program is, whether it's your coaches or maybe networking it out a little bit and really finding out a sense of really where would you fit? Where could I actually play? Do I have a chance to actually go into this program and play right away? Or am I going to be okay with having to kind of fight my way up from onto the travel roster, for example, and have an understanding where you're going to fall in the pecking order. Number two, I just will point, I think, probably to the next piece is really to be your own advocate, kind of what the coaches have all described to you already. You are, how you approach the process is going to tell the coaches the quality of the person that you are, the commitment that you demonstrate to anything that you do. So be smart in terms of how you advocate. Again, reach out to a number of different programs before you start to narrow your list. They're probably sending out lots of form letters. You want to make sure that you're really tapping into a number of different options available to you as early as possible, and then you can move yourself into that. What I would be saying to you is make sure that once you decide you want to look at a particular program, or a particular level, make sure you do an early reach out via email or phone calls, and sometimes with social media. And as a side note, again, following up on what somebody said earlier, make sure you're paying attention to what you've posted on social media, because that is a place where people are going to be looking to see, what kind of kid are you. So I'd be really strongly suggesting to you that you do that. So next, from my perspective, I think the thing that would be most important is to be thinking to yourself, how do I make sure that I'm following up with these coaches on a consistent basis, where you're demonstrating your interest in them. Not just what's going on in their program, but you're knowing what's going on campus. You're really doing your homework ahead of time. They're trying to get a gauge from you how interested you actually are in them, as much as you want to find out whether they're interested in you. So be paying attention to that. I think that again, to Coach Adams' point, if you're gonna send out an email, you want to use a template. Make sure you're personalizing it. Don't get caught sending out a form email that doesn't really demonstrate that you know the coach's name and all the other components that really have a sense that you actually know the school. The third piece that I would be describing to you, I think is important, which has already been described before, is networking. Who are your allies? Really the coach as the advocate. So meeting with your high school coach, hopefully in advance, getting him a sense of kind of what you're interested in. In many cases, if you're playing for a club program, whether it's in soccer or in basketball, in AU or swimming or whatever it might be, those coaches in many cases also might be really dialed in and tapped into different options. You should be incorporating them into your search if possible. Secondly, really importantly, as it relates to networking, you want to make sure you develop that list with your coach and your guidance counselor. So I've had a number of different occasions where I've had a coach who really wanted to advocate for one of their athletes. and they were pushing hard for this kid to go to a particular college when in fact academically it wasn't even close for them to even think that they could get in there, for example. And so it's really important that the coach and the guidance counselor get a chance to work together a little bit to make sure that they are lining you up for success. So that means the guidance counselor is coming from the perspective of let's look at your SAT, or not, forget SATs. Let's look at your GPA and your class rank. Let's get a sense of what the selectivity is in terms of the schools you're looking at and whether or not we think you'd have a good chance of getting in, right? And then you fit that information in with a list of schools that you and your coach are kind of coming up with. And then finally, make it easy for your coach to support you, right? You want to make sure you email your high school coaches with all the contact information they will need to contact a college coach, right? So if you want to get them on the phone, I'm a big advocate whenever possible of having a coach reach out directly in a personal way to via a phone call or a Google Meet or a Zoom, so that there's an opportunity for a relationship to be built. And a conversation to happen to really can talk about you as a student athlete, you as the type of kid, how you approach different situations athletically. So I'm a big advocate for that, but also make sure you make it easy for your coach to do that. Don't just say, hey coach, I want to look at UMass Dartmouth. Could you call the coach for me? Do the homework yourself, right? Demonstrate that you're committed to this. Make sure you find out the coach's contact information, get it to them, and so they can follow up on that. And then finally, my last point of reference to you is going to be make sure you represent yourself well as others, right? So you are a reflection of yourself, right, in this process, but you also reflect upon the program that you're coming from. You want to make sure that you are, if you are one more student athlete that's coming from a program that's going somewhere, that you're carrying that responsibility in the right way. And that others can follow you after you're done. So that means following up with a thank you email or a letter, as well as just making sure you're following up and paying attention to any kind of correspondence you're going to be getting back and forth from coaches. So my last thing to you is, in this process where a lot of students get tons and tons of email, and you tend to be a little more comfortable being on social media apps versus email. Most of the time, coaches are going to be communicating with you via email. So make sure you're checking your email. Don't treat everything in email as trash. Make sure that anything coming from any school you're interested in, you're opening up, you're looking at it, you're making sure you followed up on anything you need to follow up on. Okay. So let's kind of hit this, kind of all the pieces in a nutshell. I certainly would be more than happy to take any questions people might have.
Sean, before we open it up to the questions too, can you just talk a little bit briefly on the SATs? I know there's was a question in the chat box, SAT for admission, SAT for eligibility. Go.
Yeah. So the vast majority of schools have actually gone to being SAT optional this year because of all the issues around COVID and the pandemic. So be paying attention to that. I'm pretty sure the NCAA clearinghouse came out with essentially waiving the requirement for NCAA Division I and Division II athletes for the 21-22 school year. So right now, you should definitely make sure you're double checking on any school's website to verify the SATs are optional. You also might want to find out, if you're applying for scholarships, are they still wanting to see a set of scores in order to determine whether or not you're eligible for a particular scholarship in a school you're applying to. So just be making sure you go directly onto the school sites to check that information out.
Excellent. Thank you.
One last thing, even regardless of whether or not the SATs continue to stay optional, a lot of places, there's a website called fairtest.org that consistently updates its listing of schools that are SAT optional. So they've been doing it for many, many years, and the list is almost always stays current. So right now you're going to see probably hundreds and hundreds of schools that are SAT optional. But even if a lot of those schools go back to being wanting SAT scores, you can go back on fairtest.org at any point and find out that information. It's a really helpful site.
Excellent. So I've just got a couple of quick follow-up things before we open it up to some questions from folks. Number one, we heard a lot about eligibility and admission process from everybody here on the call. I just want to note those are two totally different things, right? Admission to the college does not equal NCAA eligibility or vice versa. Just because you may be NCAA eligible does not mean that you can get into the institution. So two totally different things there. Specifically talking around the NCAA, I know Coach Campbell mentioned the NCAA clearinghouse. That's Division I, Division II. That would take into account the eligibility piece there. So understanding the differences there. And then I'm going to toss a quick one Carrie's way, but public institutions versus private institutions and the impact of financial aid, Carrie. Maybe you can just talk briefly about the difference between public and private financial aid institutions.
Well, the public institutions, I mean, for us, we have state funds that we have available for in-state students. We have our own institutional funds being public, of course, limited. We do have foundation money that donors have created scholarships. Even though that's gotten a lot better through the years, it's nothing compared to private schools. Privates have a lot of their endowments available to give out to students in large chunks. They don't have a lot of reporting as the publics do, because we do have to report to the Commonwealth. So it's a lot different in that sense. So they have a lot more money at their disposal. That's grant money, scholarship, not repayable. Whereas the colleges, state colleges, public, they rely a lot too on the student loans side. So, whereas the costs are a lot different, but
right,
their funding levels are a lot different, and their coffers that they're taking out of, vary from one to the other.
Sean, do you have anything you want to pop in there? Because I know you probably deal with this quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that number one, I think that every students should make sure they're connecting in their guidance office to look and see what types of local scholarships are available to them. I think every high school should have some information as it relates to local scholarships that they can be applying to. I think Heidi had mentioned that earlier. FastWeb is definitely a place we have students look as well. Berkshire County Foundation is a really great resource for scholarships. I think relative to financial aid, I think that to Heidi's point, the financial aid process at the public college universities is really straightforward. It's filling out the FAFSA. It's whatever you're eligible for. Maybe there's money that's coming into you from an academic point of view through your MCAS scores or because of certain percentage where you rank in class or whatever that might be. So on the private side, there is definitely a substantive amount of money in many schools based around endowments. I think it's important for students to make sure that they read the fine print on those scholarships. Some of them are based around that are 4-year scholarships that are guaranteed versus ones that you have to kind of are renewed every year, but based on maintaining a certain GPA. So there can be a little bit of a bait and hook piece to this based around the level of the GPA they're asking you to try to attain each year. So you just want to be paying attention to that. I mean, schools can come out with a scholarship while you're applying to schools, and it's like a $20,000 scholarship. I got a $20,000 scholarship, and that's $20,000 on a cost of a school that might be $70,000. So there's $50,000 more dollars you got to come up with somehow. Maybe you're going to be eligible for a number of other pieces as well, but just be paying attention to all those little things to make sure that you don't end up putting yourself in a really bad situation from a debt perspective. So, I mean, I have 2 daughters who were at private universities in Catholic universities in the Northeast, and we had to make sure they were really paying attention to it throughout that process to ensure that they weren't getting in debt or we weren't getting into debt or too much debt.
Right.
So,
great. I mean, at this time, I'd like to just kind of open it up to any questions that are out there. I know we've been talking and covered a wide range of things. I think it's fair to say as well that a lot of things that we spoke about, we could probably go really in depth for much longer than what we did. So we tried to take a real general approach to it, but if you have specific questions, feel free to unmute yourself. You can direct them to any one of us here on the call, or you can dump a question into the chat box, but I'll open it up for any questions that anybody has. The awkward moment on Zoom. No questions out there? So not hearing any specific questions, I guess the way that I would kind of close up things is just to realize that the recruiting process isn't something that'll be done in a matter of, a week, a month, even 2 months. It's a long process. Some students start as early as their sophomore, junior years. Some start really late during their senior seasons, and it's not a one-size-fits-all process going through the entire, admission, application, financial aid, choosing your institution process. So I encourage you to ask a lot of questions, and there's an awful lot of information that's out there from your own coaching staffs, from your own high school athletic directors, to folks in the community as well. So I'll just let the panel maybe give one closing thought, hearing no questions, and we'll wrap up from there. I'll start with you, Gary. Go ahead.
My only closing thought that I was thinking of that I could just add to it: go visit a school, go see it, go physically walk on campus. I think that's a big deal. If you could schedule it with a coach, please do it and get the sense of what the students do on a day-to-day basis.
Carrie?
File the FAFSA form. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you get out there and get online and get that completed as soon as possible, and follow up with the colleges. Make sure you get everything in that you need to by their priority dates.
And Liz?
Advocate for yourself. Have your coaches advocate for you as well. If you're not sure if you can play at a certain school or not, depending on what levels within levels. If you're not sure, coaches know a lot of people. We're happy to go find that information out as well. And we also have a lot of resources that perhaps you don't know that we have. So please, please, please make sure that you advocate for yourself and let us help you.
Great. Sean?
No, I mean, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. One thing I should have mentioned in terms of the private college process is that if an additional financial aid you might want to be thinking about is filling out the CSS profile, which you can access through the College Board website as well. Some of the private colleges want some additional information for financial aid. I forgot to mention that, so I apologize. And then, and best of luck in everybody. I think really making sure you're reaching out, asking for help, and to Coach Gary's point, getting on campus, I do think that's the most important thing to do as well. So thank you.
And Adam?
Yeah, I think Gary's point and Sean's point of getting on campus is great. The coach may not be allowed to visit with you when you're on campus based on pandemic rules and our own rules on our campuses. So if you could schedule a Zoom call with the coach, a Zoom call with the players, that would be awesome. And you maybe even ask the coach to set it up where he's not there, your parents aren't there, and you just that's the best way to hang out now, I hate to say it, is to talk to them via Zoom, or ask the coach to connect you with the players via social media. Try to get a good feel for the program. And of course, the players are going to be coached a little bit by us. Like, they're going to be coached, but you're going to get a sense and a feeling how they feel towards the coaching staff when you talk with them. And they're either going to be the best salespeople or the worst salespeople, and you're going to know it, and you're going to realize if it's the right fit for you based on that, I think, right away when you meet with them. And happy Thanksgiving.
And as Sean had said, I'm sharing the screen here. It's a little too big. I'll shrink that up for you. But if you have any questions, feel free. There's the contact information that you see there. And again, this is going to be recorded. I'll actually send a link out to folks who want to view. And I know we ran through a lot of information, but feel free to contact any of us at the email addresses that you see there in front of you. as I said, I want to thank you all for kind of being with us. This is the first time we did this. I hope you found it helpful. Reach out, ask questions. This is something that, one thing that coaches get a lot of satisfaction is when a student athlete chooses the right institution and it works out. It's a really difficult situation when it doesn't. From a financial standpoint to a student athlete playability standpoint and so forth. So we are here to help. We're fortunate to have a lot of real quality people here in the area that just want the best for our student athletes. So I personally would like to thank Gary, Carrie, Liz, Sean, and Adam for their time. And as Adam suggested, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Stay safe. And thanks for being with us tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up. So thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.